Leave it back and like relock. the
Para
chair.
para
Yes.
más. Can you hear me? There.
Chris?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, we see you, but we don't hear you.
Really? Mm-hmm.
Just jump in your car, drive down the street, come join us.
Yeah, I'll be there in 8 hours. Still nothing?
Yeah, still nothing. It's funny because we have the closed captioning and we can read your words, but we can't hear it. So there's
You
some
want me to-
disconnect.
I'll try to relog on real quick.
He's gone.
How about now? Yes?
Yeah, Sarah said it's
No?
on our side. That didn't help any, unfortunately. So she's working on it. Grant's working on it.
Okay.
So thank you everybody for your patience while we get these technical issues figured out. We'll start the meeting as soon as we can get Chris's voice online as well.
I'll just give you the thumbs up, thumbs down all night. Does that work?
Chris, you want to give that a try?
You got me now.
Hey,
Hey, right on.
wanted to hear you, but we can't.
No, nothing.
Yeah, no, we got you. And I think Grant is wrapping up his side. I want to make sure he's good to go before we get going. But then, again, thanks everybody for your patience while we get Chris online here. Well, welcome everybody. We will call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of Tuesday, November 26th, 2024. Please join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional first people of Sitka. With gratitude, we proceed on Tlingit Ani. Sarah, roll call, please.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Present.
Mr. Mosier,
Here.
Mr. Pike, Mr. Yestad,
Here.
Mr. Christensen,
Here.
Ms. Carlson,
Here.
and Mr. Celine.
Here.
You just let it sit for a minute. I'll come back. Any correspondence or agenda changes this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our ceremonial matters. We have 2 service awards tonight for 2 people who were on boards and commissions. We thank them for their service most definitely. The first one for Ted Laufenberg for his service of over 2 years on the Building Appeals Board. And the second one for James Mellema for his over 7 years in serving on the Police and Fire Commission. So we thank you both for your times on those boards and commissions. Know that the experience you bring is not easily replaced, and we thank you for your time while you were able to. You're welcome to if you'd like, or we can just get a picture and. eight years. And then. So that'll bring us to special reports this evening. Unfortunately, just found out Chairman has a conflict tonight, so is unable to attend in person. But we do have another scheduled special report, an update on search Mount Edgecombe Medical Center construction from our hospital administrator, Bill Spivey. So Bill, please. And your technology will work too. Don't worry about that guy right there. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the Assembly.
I appreciate the opportunity to come and visit with you for a few minutes tonight and give you updates on our construction project at the hospital. As a way of introduction of myself, I'm Bill Spivey. I am currently the hospital administrator at MIMSI. I've been a Sitka resident for about 20 plus years. In a previous life, I was a physical therapist at Sitka Community Hospital and ultimately the director of outpatient operations for that hospital. And over the years, spent a few hours standing under basketball goals and on football fields and working with local athletic programs, which was a great joy for me. I retired from that position in 2010, spent a little bit of time wandering around the Caribbean, and then came back in 2019 with an opportunity to work for Search. From 2019 until very recently, I was the system director of rehab services. And I guess what that means is I spent my time building rehab departments from Haynes all the way down to Prince of Wales. And that also is a great passion of mine to provide services as a physical therapist to members of the Southeast Alaska community. In August, I was offered the opportunity to work here in Sitka as the hospital administrator and shepherd our move into the new hospital. Something I'm extremely excited about. My children live here in Sitka. My grandchildren live here in Sitka. I have family. I'm very excited to be part of assisting with the provision of care for them as well as the rest of the community. It's always, when we do a presentation, both at the hospital and across Southeast, we like to start with grounding in our mission and our values. And in particular, the mission at Search is Alaska Native people working in partnership to provide the best health care for our communities. And I think tonight I want to highlight that word partnership, which is something I'm very excited and very interested in doing, and that is working with this assembly and with the members of the community in partnership as we move forward with this project. Search provides services in 26 distinct communities across Southeast Alaska. We operate 2 critical access hospitals, Mount Edgecombe Medical Center here in Sitka and Wrangell Medical Center in Wrangell. The long-term care center here in Sitka has 19 long-term care beds. I believe that's soon to be 20. And in Wrangell Medical Center, 18. There are 1,500 employees working at Search, over 140 providers, and a few of the sort of the roll call of the services provided in 2023, almost 120,000 primary care clinical visits, 72,000 behavioral health visits. My personal favorite, almost 35,000 physical rehab visits, in addition to many, many other services that we have the opportunity to provide. In 2024, the board identified a number of strategic goals for us to work on, and one of those, very importantly, was to complete the construction of the new hospital here in Sitka. We're somewhere between this thing doing it on its own and me pushing buttons, so I'll try to control that. Here in Sitka, in addition to Mount Edgecombe Medical Center, services are provided at Sitka Medical Center, the opioid treatment clinic, our behavioral health clinic, our long-term care department, and our rehabilitation clinic at Mountainside. A little history on the project we're going to look at tonight. We applied for joint venture construction program with the Indian Health Service in 2020. In 2021, we were awarded that agreement for the new hospital. And construction began in 22 with design completed in 23. Groundbreaking occurred in June of 2022 on a hospital that will ultimately be 234,528 square feet. That more than doubles the size of the existing hospital. Construction is moving very well. We're very excited about the pace of the construction. And I get over there about once a month, once every 2 months, and I'm always amazed at how quickly things are coming along. This is a stacking diagram that we use to help you try to give you a vision of what the hospital will be at completion. The level, what we call level G or ground floor, level 1 with what we usually call building A and building B, which are on either side of the main lobby and registration area for the hospital. Level 2 with that entire list of patient care services, which are connected by a bridge across between the two. And then on level 3, what you would more traditionally look for in a hospital, which are the acute care beds, the ICU, rehab, labor and delivery, sterile processing, and surgery. And then finally on level 4, the administrative wing. I'm not someone who manages very well using diagrams and floor plans, but some people are better at this than I. So I wanted to include these in the presentation tonight to give you an idea, a little bit of what the floor plan looks like. This is level G, gives you some idea of what the kitchen space looks like, washers, bulk storage, health technology management, etc. Level 1, the physical rehab all the way on one end with pharmacy and lab side by side. The main registration area and the main lobby where patients will enter the building. And then on the other side with the imaging and optometry and emergency departments all close to one another for easy and ready access. At level 2 are the primary care and behavioral health.
Sorry to interrupt. Which
sir.
side? So the side facing the channel, we'll say, is that on the top of the screen or the bottom of the
The
screen?
side facing the channel is at the top of the screen.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. So looking at level 2, you can see primary care and behavioral health are side by side on the left side of the screen, and then connected by the bridge, you can see audiology, infusion, specialty care, and dental on level 2. Moving up to level 3, the acute care wing with the adjoining hallway that moves across to labor and delivery, surgery, and sterile processing. And finally, the administration wing up on the 4th floor. The access points for the building are, as you can see, and again, the top of the screen is Seward Avenue and the channel side. And so you can see that staff parking is independent. And on the far left side of this diagram, patient drop-off will be right in front of the entryway to the building. Patient and visitor parking is a significant increase in parking on the lower right side of that. And then the ED entrance is along, can't read that, Tongass Avenue, yeah. The building will be open 7 days a week, and all of the services currently provided will be available throughout the week. There will be no significant change in services from where we are now at MEMC. A few of the things that we like to highlight when we talk about the new building: patient drop-off and pickup will be at the main entrance and the ED entrance. We've expanded patient parking with this project. Single occupancy inpatient rooms with adequate space for visitors. A large cafe and concessions area and lactation rooms will be available. A few photographs for you. And the photograph or the picture we're looking at now is the main lobby area as you enter from the building at the main entrance, which gives you an idea of how expansive that space is. Left side is the servery and the cafeteria area, and then the pharmacy. The physical rehab gym. The behavioral health registration and waiting area is coming together. Acute care patient room on the left side to give you some sense of the size of that room. It's really amazing, that room and the space that will be available for the care of patients. The ICU rooms looking down what we're calling the acute care hallway. standing on the bridge, looking down into the main lobby and the main entrance of the hospital. And then standing on the bridge and looking back towards behavioral health, primary care, and urgent care. And that's the hospital. Happy to field any questions you might have.
Any questions for Bill while we have him here?
Just one. So you're gonna keep the first floor as the ground floor? So you're gonna have somebody there going, no, you're not on the right floor, you need to go up one?
You know, I asked this question myself. We have meetings on a very regular basis with working on that sort of planning, that exact sort of planning. And I asked the question, I said, you know, when I was a kid and I walked into a hospital, there was always this little area right in the front, and there was a little lady standing there with the auxiliary who was absolutely excited to help you figure out where you're going. We don't have the auxiliary there, but we will be there. Our patient experience team, our patient access team are all just inside the front, actually on the right-hand side. And because, yep, we're going to need to point people to where they're going.
Bill, I have a question for you. By the way, thank you for the presentation. I'm excited. I
You're
really
welcome.
like that the pharmacy is going to be on the floor where you pull up to. Just curious, you guys may have told us this before, but what are you guys going to do with the old hospital building and the old admin building and things like that?
That's a great question that I've been forbidden to even try to answer.
Okay. Okay, it's okay.
Yeah, it's not, we're not to that place yet.
Okay, so you have.
Lots of ideas.
So
lots
you,
of
it's all
suggestions and
brainstorming
ideas.
session, but that's why you're not going to say this. If you say what it is, everybody's going to say, well, they said.
I know, and people
Okay.
will say, wait a minute, I thought you said we were going to be there.
Yeah.
And then,
All right,
it's a
sounds
great
good.
question.
Thank you, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Is there like a return on investment for drilling the vertical ground source loops? Do you know how long that's gonna be before you get payback for incurring that expense and start pumping heat for free?
I love this question because I asked Mike Pountney this morning, I said, what kind of questions am I going to get today? And he said, well, Scott Selene's going to ask you about and I said, absolutely. And 10 years is the number we're
Very
looking
good.
at.
Thank
Yeah, you're welcome. And I don't know if everyone's familiar with that, but I actually wrote that down because this is one of the things I'm actually pretty excited about. The heat loop system has been designed to assist us with decreasing the electrical demand for this facility. There are 66 wells drilled over 350 vertical feet down underneath the parking lot that will provide us with about 30% of our total electric needs. And 200,000 gallons of fuel savings for generator use. And 10 years was the number I was given. Thank you for asking that question. I'm glad I was ready with that one. I wouldn't have had the faintest idea what the answer to that was if Mike hadn't told me.
Your team is great at preparing you. Just a clarification about that ground floor at level 1. Ground floor is mainly below grade, only accessible from that channel side. More for behind the scenes stuff. A patient would enter straight on to the lobby, which is level 1 from the typical entry side. So
That's a good
a
clarification. Yep.
split design. So thank you.
And it's expansive. You walk into that space and look at this. Yeah.
So if you can't answer the question about what the old buildings are going to do, you can answer my question then of when are we going to have the ribbon cutting in the cafeteria?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I know you don't have an estimated completion, so I'm not going to put you on the spot with that one, but
I appreciate
would
that.
look forward to a meal in the cafeteria once it's open. I'll be a
Absolutely.
wonderful paying customer.
And I look forward to the opportunity to come back with updates as we get closer. These pictures, believe it or not, they're less than a month old, but it looks nothing like that today. The progress is impressive. Okay.
Great. Yeah, appreciate your time and let us know when you'd like to come back. We'll make sure to get you on the agenda. Thank you. Moving on this evening in special reports. Anyone else here for government to government? Municipal boards, commissions, committees? Has a slot all for themselves. Municipal departments? School district? Oh, wait, no. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm just so excited. Hi, my name is Phil Burdick. I am the current school board president for the Sitka School District. I'm joined here with Dr. Deidre Jensen, who is the superintendent. We just wanted to meet and get, this is my first time as a school board president and first time speaking with you all. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on what's been happening, some things coming up, and a quick highlight. And that's about how it'll roll. Highlights from our most recent meeting, we got a report from Tremco on the Blatchley Middle School roof. We learned that while it's in pretty bad shape, there's no imminent danger, and we'll be moving forward with those repairs as soon as possible. Another thing that I know that we worked very closely on is the budget. Our final student count for the month of October was above our projected numbers. So that bodes well as far as, you know, the guessing game that is Sitka School District or all district budgets. And upcoming meetings, one of the things that we really wanted to do was get ahead of the game a little bit on the budget stuff, because it is always such a fun little carousel in the springtime. We're going to have a budget work session on Monday, December 2nd. And this is just going to be informational and procedural for the most part. We want to get a sense of where we are right now and also what we might expect. So really just a 30,000-foot view of where things are, with some potential early projections of what it might look like if the state comes back with 0, 340, 680. Those are kind of the numbers that are always getting thrown around. We're also going to talk about ways that we're going to try and get more robust public input and a timeline for that work. One of the things that Dr. Jensen and I have been talking about is how we can work with stakeholders and the community and reaching out to them instead of having y'all come to us. So we're going to talk about some ways that we're going to do that. And then some highlights. So as you all know, this year started rough. Many teachers didn't know what they were going to do. Many teachers were riffed. Didn't know where they were going to be teaching, didn't know what they were going to be teaching. So much uncertainty. But our staff is just amazing. The way they came together and shouldered that load. And so I just really want to highlight their professionalism and dedication, because I am also a 25-year public ed veteran, and knowing what it feels like to walk in the doors those first days is always, it's always exciting, and it's always a little nerve-wracking. So I really appreciate our staff. I also would like to recognize our staff, and especially our counselors, who continue to make a huge difference in the lives of our students. We've had a lot of tragedy in the community. Deaths of students, teachers, family members. And the way that our staff has come together and held each other up has been outstanding. And we really appreciate the community as well, doing the same. So that's really what I wanted to highlight, was how much I love our staff, how much I love this community, and how great it has been that we've been able to come together through all this stuff. So, and I look forward to all the carousel in the springtime.
Yeah, is it weird to say that I look forward to our budget sessions too? 8 years ago, it was not as rosy. We were both in hard spots, but I think we've come to a place where there's a mutual agreement, it's somewhat even before, and we understand where we're going and we understand how to get there. And it makes it easy on everybody, because just like you don't want your room full of parents, we don't want our room full of parents either. That's probably even more terrifying than walking into a classroom for the first time. And I'm far too intimidated to do that. So no, we appreciate your update and look forward to working with you over the next little bit as school board president. Thank you. And then finally, under special reports, is there any students and guests for special reports? Seeing none, that'll bring us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
There's a red button on the bottom. Perfect. Thank you.
Gotcha. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Stephanie Weddle, President of the Alaska Native Sisterhood. I'm joined by Chad Tytel, Vice President of the Alaska Native Brotherhoods Camp 4 and Camp 1. We're here this evening to, I guess, suggest a compromise of sorts. This is our first year chairing the holiday community dinners. As I'm sure you're all aware, serve many people in our community, from elders to families to people who are stuck here for medical, to our fishermen and women, our homeless, all come and enjoy a wonderful hot meal and company on Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve. We provide that to them for free. Last year, we served over 350 people in-house. That didn't include the dinners that went out to elders and disabled people who were unable to join us physically in person. This year, we expect that number to be much higher, and we've prepared for that. We learned this year that we didn't know that you have to submit a year in advance a request to get funding from the city for the budget. So lesson learned there, but we come with a compromise. We have 6 turkeys left. If any of you wonderful men and women would like to adopt a turkey this evening, cook it and bring it back, we would be glad. And it's a wonderful way to have some sort of government to government between A&B A&S and the city of Sitka. So I have 6 turkeys if anyone would like to adopt one and bring it back tomorrow night.
Thank you. If you'll stay at least till the top of the hour, we'll have a break, and assembly members will be able to come talk to you at that point.
Perfect.
And there is a refrigerator to keep that guy nice and cool if you need as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening for persons to be heard? Any item not on tonight's agenda? That'll bring us to consent agenda, please.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A, approve the following liquor and marijuana license applications. 1, a transfer of ownership application, premises diagram application, and restaurant endorsement application from Marina Pizza and Grill LLC to Totem Marina LLC, DBA Marina Pizza and Grill at 201 Catlin Street. 2, renewal applications for SOE LLC, DBA Little Tokyo at 327 Seward Street. And 3, a standard marijuana cultivation facility license renewal application for Jeremy J. Erickson, DBA Vern's Wicked Weed at 3872 Halibut Point Road, Bay 1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any public comment? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve the, is that working? Just, okay. On the motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A, Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes?
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yeah,
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Celine.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0 on item A.
Thank you. Item B, please.
I move to appoint Nicole D. Caraway to a 3-year term on the Animal Hearing Board and reappoint Amanda Roberts to a 3-year term on the Health Needs and Human Services Commission and appoint Leslie Young to a 3-year term on the Police and Fire Commission.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint and reappoint the above named individuals. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation?
Thank you
Sarah?
for serving.
Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve the appointment and reappointments, Mr. Yestad,
yes,
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes?
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
And Mr. Celine.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on item B.
Thank you. Unfinished business, item C, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-25 on second and final reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025 Finance Department personnel and contract/purchase services.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 24-25. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-25 on second and final reading, Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
yes,
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
and Mayor Eisenbeiß.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0, item C.
Item D, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-26 on second and final reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025 Marine Vessel Haul Out and Shipyard Project Disaster Relief Payment. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 24-26. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-26 on second and final reading, Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
yes,
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes?
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
and Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0.
Item E, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-27 on second and final reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025 solid waste vehicle.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 24-27. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-27 on second and final reading, Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes?
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
And Mr. Yestad.
yes,
Motion passes 7-0 on item E.
Item F, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-28 on second and final reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025 Crescent Harbor Courts.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 24-28. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation? Kevin?
Only a comment to say, the reason why I think there's not much comment on these is because this is the second reading. On the first reading, we had a lot of deliberative discussion on this, so thank you.
Correct. New business next will not go quite as expeditiously. Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-28 on second and final reading, Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes?
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yeah.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
and Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on item F.
Thank you. That'll bring us to new business this evening, item G.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-29 on first reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025 marine vessel haul out and shipyard project.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. John, I understand Michael is here to give us an introduction to this one.
That's correct. Michael's here and also, I'm gonna call Gary out too if, you don't need to come up yet, Gary, but he's available in the crowd as well if there's questions.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Assembly members. Michael Harmon, Municipal Engineer. I'll step back and give, a little bit of background. We've come a long ways with this project and, I'm sure memories could use a little refreshing on some of these items. So hopefully I'm here to help with that tonight, help you make an educated decision as you go through these items. So certainly, call me back up or keep me here as long as you need to dig in deeper than what I'll do here as a summary if you need more information. I'll start out with our charter for this project that we passed back in July. Assembly passed back in July of 2023. We had a few months leading up to that charter, working with the GPIP board and subject matter experts to sort of create that document and our living contract, so to speak, for this project to sort of prioritize what we could do with a very limited budget compared to the needs that we had listed through the planning process. There was 6 primary objectives at a high level that came out of that charter that kind of gave me the marching orders. Number 1 was a planning and conceptual development process, which we had actually had completed at the same time that charter was adopted. Looked at several different options and siting locations for the haul out at the Gary Paxton Industrial Park. We had environmental permitting as a primary, very important piece of this and actually the critical path item for the project from the beginning. Very long, extensive process to go through especially the federal environmental permitting. Vessel haul out with piers. So we wanted it to move away from the ramp concepts and go to a pier concept with a travel lift that had slings to pull them directly out of the water. So the most efficient option for our region. We wanted to have a wash down system at that time. This was one of the harder objectives to get through. We had the top 2 concepts. So the 4 was a decision between 150-ton lift that would currently serve the majority of our fleet, very kind of similar to what Halibut Point Marine has operating, but a little bit more lift to that, recognizing that boats are getting larger, but also the ability to look out into the future and plan these piers to handle a 300-ton. We got quite a bit of input through the process that those larger vessels were kind of the future to make the park grow and be more sustainable. So we could have that additional 300 tons, but in order to get there within the budget, we had to give up a permanent concrete washdown pad. Or we could have a concrete washdown pad and just have 150-ton piers and not really plan for that 300-ton, have to come back and spend quite a bit more in the future if you were to add that, much cheaper to plan for it now. So it was selected to drop the concrete washdown pad and go with the 300-ton and plan for just a temporary membrane pad at that time. And then, of course, we wanted our EPA washdown treatment system that takes in the runoff off the washdown pad and treats it, gets the main grit out of it and sends it to the sewage treatment plant. And then we wanted to have a travel lift to haul out. piece of equipment included in there to just make sure these 6 pieces are really the fundamentals to have an operating haul out at the end of the day with the funding that we had that would be fairly comparable to getting started at the level that Halibut Point Marine was operating at the time. Like any project, we've had our bumps and bruises along the way, dealing with unforeseen escalations in costs. The 2 primary drivers of that, the largest ones, were the geotech report. When that was done, we found out that the piles are going to have to be driven much, much deeper than expected, much deeper than the dock that's neighboring to that. And that was very surprising before we did design, what the assumptions were on cost, was expecting it to, if anything, to be shallower as you're moving closer to the mountainous hillsides. So that was a surprise. And then when we did the sub bids later for the subcontracting, those costs came in significantly higher than expected. We did a construction manager at risk form of contracting to help mitigate that, and it did help to the degree that we had a contractor on board from 35% on to help us with the cost. And they're a marine contractor, and they were very good at the marine prices. In fact, they came in a little bit lower than what they had estimated at 35%, but they're really surprised with the costs in Sitka coming from the civil rock fill mainly. Some of the electrical work was just much higher than what they had seen in other communities and what they thought was going to happen. So that came in later than expected in the game, but we had an advanced process that we set prices at a 65% design through that process. So that's given us the time we needed to sort of improvise and overcome these cost increases and stay true to the 6 primary objectives of the charter. So through our process of seeing those higher costs, we were able to value engineer out some of the fill area that we had initially to shrink that down a little bit, but really didn't have any major impacts to the end product and our goals. We moved some walls and replaced that with fill instead. We shrunk the drainage a little bit, and unfortunately, we were down to not a lot more we could cut and stay operational. So the contingency took a pretty good hit at that time. We dropped that down to $100,000, which is ideally we want to be at 10%. That dropped us down into the 1.5% range, very tight. And we're able to move forward at that time. We moved forward immediately, at least getting the contract moving forward, that we wanted to work on that contingency number. Had a number of options we looked at and ideas of how to improve that, whether it's donate staff time or look at different monies that have come in. And we really determined that it was best to look at the working capital funds to primarily provide that. So that's what we're here tonight to discuss, to dedicate more of a 5% range or $350,000 to the project, and set up the working capital funds to help support that. The fishery funds was a great win in this process, as was the haul out funding that we got in. And I got to give kudos to John and Gary for continuing to pursue money for this project to keep us alive and keep us core to these objectives. And I apologize that I've been the one who keeps bringing the bad news, that it's one step forward and one step back just to stay even. And now as we were working on this process, it really became apparent that the concrete washdown pad would really be nice to have. We have an operator interested now. They've stressed that point. The GPIP board's been stressing that point. So the GPIP board is bringing forward a recommendation that now's the time. We'll never get that cheaper. I certainly support that. We'll never get it cheaper than we could now. If you can afford to find the money for it, let's get that done. So they have approved dedicating, the working capital further to that, and then the fisheries fund that you just passed tonight, and pull all these monies together and see if we can get all of this done. The washdown pad is scalable. We have a heated element associated to that could extend the use through the winter months. We have approximately 68 days of below freezing on average in Sitka. So it could help extend through those periods. Many communities don't have that. We heard through the process they really regretted not having it. All we're simply doing with this is positioning to have it in the future by putting the piping in the concrete. We will not have the boiler or a way to necessarily operate that in phase one, but it will be set up for phase two to add those features and at least have it in the concrete to keep it alive as an option. And then in the memo, we outlined pretty well there. So you have any questions on how the money's split up between the working capital to pull in to come up with the $850,000 to cover $500,000 for the washdown pad and the additional working capital needing to fill the $350,000 contingency goal we're shooting for at this point. And I can say with great news, finish this out. We're driving piles out there. We're there. We've got bent one down over 80 feet, all 4 piles past the debris piles that we've been digging out. But we do know through digging out debris piles, we do have some contingency costs at this point. It's real. We're going to need those funds to a certain degree for sure. But everything we don't use, we hope we can apply that to the washdown pad and other things, or just choosing to save that money for the future phases and hopefully not spend it all.
Great. Thank you, Michael. I'm sure we'll have additional questions after public comment for you, so I wouldn't go too far. Is there any public comment on ordinance 24-29? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the assembly. Tor?
Yeah, go ahead. Up here.
I was just gonna see.
Kevin?
If we can have Mike come back up again, Mr. Mayor. Sure.
Told you not to go too far.
Thank you, Michael, for the synopsis. Appreciate it. The memo explains things pretty well too. Just to confirm though, when we authorize this funding, that will allow us to do the concrete washdown pad, right?
Yeah, if you fully authorize everything we have outlined here, that would provide the $500,000 for the concrete washdown pad. And then if we're kind of setting ourselves up for the full situation, the full contingency, the full washdown pad price. The contingency is kind of an unknown if we'll really use all of that and where we'll land, but we're setting it all up now. So we're not having to pause for a month we don't want to put the contractor in delay and have delay claims. So we want to set that all up now.
Okay, because it seems like it's definitely cheaper to do it in the long run as a concrete pad than have it temporary, because you have to kind of fix it as time goes on. Where concrete lasts longer.
The temporary pad was estimated at $50,000. I think we're going to kind of leave that to the operator to potentially propose way, because I think there's ways to do it cheaper, but the cheaper you do it, the more you're going to be cycling through them more often and replacing that membrane, because it's going to get torn up. And yeah, you wouldn't have that cost if we have a concrete pad.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for Michael.
Tor, question for Michael. Questions for Michael while he's up here? Scott?
Is that gonna be resistive heat, or you said piping into your concrete? So
Yeah,
it's gonna be
so-
circulating glycol or maybe even ocean water, if that would, has there been any load calculation on just pumping ocean water with 68 days of potential demand?
It's a good question. Right now, it's set up to more do a glycol system, but that's an interesting idea to, we're in a fill section. Could we pull from the ocean? Have to look in that. Another option I'd like to look at is doing it with electricity, because we wouldn't necessarily need a boiler and we could get that going sooner rather than later, potentially. So
Like C-Mart's ramp coming up from their parking lot, just wires in there that just
Yep.
burn the heat and convection
Yep.
brings the heat up.
Yep. So, first step, if this is approved, I think we want to look at a few options on that and make sure we're heading down the right path with the glycol or not.
Thank you.
I do got a couple for you, Michael. Agree with everything you said, except for one thing. And you are the subject matter expert, but you stated that this concrete washdown pad is nice to have, and I'll disagree with you. This is an absolute necessity for this project. The fact that it made it this far, and I don't know if I overlooked it or what, but to not have a washdown pad to me, it doesn't mean you don't have a working haul out. Now, I know there's other options where you can Band-Aid it. That's not what the community needs. That's not what the community wants. So I'm glad to see this in front of us to get a permanent washdown pad, because that truthfully is the haul out there. If we don't have that, we can't do anything. But I do want to talk about the effectiveness of a heated washdown pad for a bit. I understand that this is an unsettled issue at GPIP. They're still going to be looking for public input to see, on those 68 days, will people actually be hauling boats? Will anything move around? But so let's go ahead and assume, and I know we're not going to have a perfectly flat surface out at GPIP right now. That's why we bought a travel lift with a little bit more capability to cross some of the terrain that we're going to have out there. On a perfectly smooth day, if we have icing like we did this last week, if we have a heated washdown pad, we can pull that boat out and we can wash it. Can we move that boat anywhere?
Yeah, it's really going to depend on the specifics of the conditions for sure, and how much de-icing that the operator wants to do throughout the park, and how busy you are to do that. All we know at this point is that Wrangell and the other yards really wish they would have done this and regret it, and that's our input. I think now that we're getting an operator on board, I think that's really key to be talking to them and how do you want to run it? I mean, are they going to run it in those months or not? And how are they going to keep the rest of the yard clear enough to make that worth it? Maybe they'd like to just sit somebody on that washdown pad for a long period of time to do a really larger boat to do work for a while on that pad, and have a heated area to do work during those off months and not move it around much. I'm not sure. Those are all operational challenges that could be explored.
Yeah, I guess it's an unsettled issue for me too, because if you say someone's going to sit on there for a long time, well, we freeze for a week on, week off type deal. So if they're sitting there longer than that, then they can move down the pad. We can time it around our freezes. So I agree that the heating is a nice to have, but that's an issue that's unsettled for me. So I'll be talking to the assembly more when we get to that point.
Can I add to
John,
that answer, Mr.
for
Mayor?
Michael, or
I wanted to add
Okay,
to that answer,
please.
just because we've, Mr. White and I have talked to potential operator as we're working through a scope development. And another thing that came up, it's more than just the usability of the ramp. We have a SWIP plan to deal with. That's your stormwater pollution prevention. I forgot all the Ps what
Got
they
it.
stand for, but there's a SWIP plan as well, and there's a drain. And if there's a lot of ice and snow buildup on that ramp, it's preventing the proper drainage going through that could affect your SWIP plan. So that was something we didn't think about from the get-go, and should be a consideration as well.
thank you. Tor?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say like anything you build, I think the foundation is your most important thing. I mean, and I see the cement pad heated as a foundation, because first of all, people work on their boats in the winter. And that's when you are not fishing or you're not working. And if you can, you know, if you have to wait until spring, then everybody and your brother is gonna be out there trying to get in there. And now and so having that ability to go over the winter, I think is important. And I think a cement pad is all along, I've thought we've got to figure out a way to do this. So I'm going to be supporting this enthusiastically, and it's actually a pretty small amount that we're actually pulling from. I mean, it's as I read this, 163,000, which in terms of our financial position is pretty minimal. And the you know, I love Scotty's idea of, I mean, when he talked about before, running seawater through that if that would work, that'd be cool. But because it doesn't have to be warm, it just has to be above freezing. But I think this is a no-brainer. I think we approve this, and I have every, you know, I feel that it's in good hands, and that I know they're not going to waste any money on this, and they're going to, we're doing it as best they can with what they have and get it the most we can. So I have no problem at all, you know, approving this.
Anything else from Michael while he's, please, JJ?
Thank you, Michael. Of the 500,000 for the concrete washdown pad, what amount of that is for this heated component?
Yeah, $100,000 of that
Okay.
for the tubing.
And have other funds been looked at? Do you know of, like the bulk raw water fund and other things out there at GPIP?
I'm gonna
Is that
pass that one to finance
Okay.
director. He's here.
Chance to begin. Hi, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa.
So we largely used up the available balance in the bulk water fund when we purchased the land that was located in the middle of the haul out area. And kind of in consultation, we proposed using the fund balance that was available in the GPIP fund, largely because that fund balance has grown a bit because of the interest earned on the funds that are funding the capital project.
And that's how it's at 350,000 now. Okay. And then Southeast Economic Development Fund, that was also helped support that purchasing of the property in October. Anything left
There's
in that?
very little in there right now.
Okay, thank you. I believe I read on a GPIP board meeting minutes about a potential new person wanting to get in with our water deal. Do we know when that's going to happen and when we'd have more money coming into that fund? Everyone gets to join. Thank you. My series of questions can only happen in a room like this.
Thank you, Gary.
Hi, Gary White, GPIP. So it's a little complicated. So we have a contract now with a group called, Arctic Blue Waters of Alaska. And in their contract, they have a first right of refusal to obtain another 6.8 billion gallons of water. If they exercise their first right, they will pay the city and borough $350,000. So now we have another group that's passed the GPIP board. The contract's been ready to go. Rachel's been getting a lot of information thrown at her, so I'm working with her. Eventually, here hopefully soon, we'll get this other group's contract in front of you guys for vetting, and if you all approve that, then the other group will have to exercise their right, pay the $350 if they want to continue to do so. I talked to those guys last week, the Arctic Blue guys. They're in the process of developing a water loading plan. They tell me that they have contracts signed and all this other stuff, but I've been told that before. So I'm going to tell you what people have told me. So potentially we could have, sometime this fiscal year, another 350 coming into the raw water fund. But a lot of that's unknown. If you all don't agree with passing this other contract with this outside group from Florida, then they don't have to exercise their rights. And if they do, can they come up with a 350? Can they provide a letter that says that they have a signed contract? Because they have to do that per the water purchase agreement. So like I said, a little bit complicated, but potential we could have another 350 coming in.
Potential, yes. And this money that we're talking about tonight, 350 from GPIP working capital, 163,000 from general fund. Does this need to happen now? There's a timeline that this money needs to get into the project?
Yeah, we really need to have access to that so we don't cause delays to the contractor as things come up. So we need that one. I'm most passionate about that one,
Yes.
getting in there as soon as possible.
No waiting for potentials of funding sources coming. So that helps me, because when I see some general fund money requests for something specific like this, I'm gonna try to find, where and why and how we got to this point. So thank you for all three of you coming together to answer those questions. Is there I know you mentioned earlier, Michael, about that temporary membrane, some potentials to have it be installed away so it lasts longer. What is the range you expect for the lifespan of a temporary membrane?
Highly variable by how well they take care of it. That's why I think the operator bringing that and wanting to take care of it would be important. And then I think you could get 5 years out of that. But as soon as you don't protect it and somebody rips it, and I think you'd want to put, whether it's plywood down on it or bury it under rock a little bit or something to protect that. Otherwise, you are going to get holes in it, probably with people and grinders, or you're gonna have to have real strict rules about what type of equipment you allow to come over the top of that. And it's just gonna be a lot more sensitive where the concrete, you don't have to worry about it.
Thank you. My last question is maybe a very pedestrian one, but we're talking about heating the concrete. Is there a way we can just heat the water we use to wash? So we don't get a similar freezing situation?
Yeah, well, yeah, you could have a heated pressure washer and heat it that way. And
So this is just to set the budget, and then we have to go back and work with these folks. And I think Scotty's got a good idea. That's a good idea. And our goal is obviously not to spend money on stuff that is a luxury, because we've got a pile of stuff that we'd like to have for the haul out that we don't have funding for anyways. So once we have this budget, we can start digging in and looking at, different creative ways to do this, to meet the goal of being able to, like John said, having that wash water be able to flow and not flow off the pad and into the ocean, keeps us out of a lot of environmental risks.
I think it's a big advantage too, having experienced operator now to kind of talk through some of those ideas. It's a big benefit in that stage.
Thank you. Yes. Just wish there was a little bit more flexibility in here, but I appreciate it. Mhm.
Anything else for Gary or Michael while we have them up here? Great, thank you. Appreciate your time this evening. Further from the assembly, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm going to support this. JJ brings up some good points. My thought is that we need a concrete washdown pad. I think if you're going to do it, we have one time to do it. Let's do it right. Let's get the heating in there. And I think these guys, folks just need certainty. They need to be able to know how much they can spend so that they can go for it. And I have full confidence they're going to, find any efficiencies that can. But I definitely think we need a concrete washdown pad, heated. And 163,000 sounds like a lot, but in the big picture of what this is going to mean for this community, I think it's a small price to pay. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Tim?
Thank you. Yeah, I think, I guess it's about building the future in a way. And I mean, I'm thinking about a temporary membrane followed then by another construction phase of putting in a concrete something. And then yet maybe another one of tearing that out and putting in one with pipes in it. So I mean, I think we could pay for this 3 times or we could pay for it once. And I think we should pay for it once and we should pay for it now and get it over with so that this becomes a functional facility. I mean, it sounds like GPIP's going to go figure out how to heat it and that will explain a lot and the operator's going to have a hand in that. I think those are all really good plans. So I think it's a good time to spend the money now. Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if you found a funding source that didn't involve the general fund, but we are where we are.
Chris, please. You got to yell at me sometimes too. I don't always look at the screen.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same comments here, you know, it's only going to get more expensive if we put this off. You know, one thing I was thinking about when it comes to the heating, I've been going back and forth on the heating it or not. Especially considering I was one of the ones always hauled out in the dead of winter at HPM, doing my larger projects. But that's kind of what it brings me to is a lot of we're usually not hauling out boats a lot during the winter time, but the haul outs that are happening during the winter time are generally the bigger ticket haul outs. They're the repowers, the reshafting, a bunch of woodwork. You know, it's the ones where lots of money will get infused into our local economy. So making it so we can haul boats and do these bigger ticket haul outs, I think that's going to be really critical. You know, I like that we haven't absolutely said that we're going to use the glycol system. Scotty's point of using seawater is really interesting. So yeah, I'm obviously in favor for this, and willing to look at other options for the heating. But I do think being able to use this yard all year long is going to be beneficial for our economy.
I love it when points are made at the assembly table that have logic and make me consider my point of view. I was pretty firm on, well, if you need heat, come back for it. But I was also really firm on a concrete washdown pad over this. And when other assembly members say that, you know, we just need to do this because this is complete, like that follows my train of thought as well and my logic. So I can't not get on that train. I know Gary's here listening, so I'm sure he'll pass on our word. Our GPIP liaison is here listening. I'm sure he'll pass on the word too, to do diligent research on the most effective ways to heat that pad if it's necessary. I would add on that. Because I still believe if we can't move our travel lift around, I don't know if there's point in heating the whole pad, maybe just our drainage system, and we can bring down the contingencies. Because I'm sure this won't be the last time we hear that we've hit a snag with this. And, you know, this project has to continue. So if we hit another snag, there'll be another supplemental here for us to debate. So I can jump on board, and I know that there will be some due diligence done in the process as it moves forward. JJ?
I absolutely support contingency, especially with bringing something like out of the ground, that earthwork. We just don't know what's there. That is the most unknown portion of any project. With a project delivery method, a little confusion for me around that with how we chose to go about finding contractors here, but always money towards contingency. I'm more hesitant to access a general fund for a project, you know, midway, as we see budgets shift around a lot. And we haven't really heard from this group in 16 months. I think some earlier communication could have made me more committing to an answer tonight, because we need to know. We need to know what's going on, when it's going on. And 160,000 from general fund could open the doors for other people making similar asks. And this is a big project. You know, it went to a vote. The community said they wanted it. But to what degree and at what cost is a question that I consider. As an assembly member, we're here for policy and financial decisions for the overall community. And accessing that general fund gets a little bit more review from me than some of these, specific funds that are out there, like raw water going direct to GPIP, or, the $10 tax on fish boxes going direct to fisheries. I'm in support of contingency, but not funding something that is a nice to have that would help a very small segment of the community. If we had better data that says, $1 of city funds in 5 years would bring $5, $10 of economic impact to this community, absolutely. That would hit my threshold of what I'm doing here as an assembly member. But we don't have that. We have, we could get these 300-ton boats in town, or we could see all of this. I need more. I need more to, trust and verify. There's probably some great subject matter experts out there, but where's their report? Where's their assessment? Where's that market research study? And it's unfortunate that this is all bundled into one, a little bit of money from here, money from there that goes to these ideas of things. You'd have to vote yes to all of those, or vote, say no to one, but then need that to be an overall vote of what? Like, there's a lot of pieces here, and I agree with most of them, but not all of them. So it's hard to vote overall when it's such a bundled ordinance. And I think I'm going to have to say no, because a lot is being asked and there's so many what ifs still out there. But contingency is great. So I appreciate that aspect of this. The concrete, the pipes in the concrete, the other wish list items here, I wish I would have seen this as 2 items. Thank you.
Anything further from the assembly? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-29 on first reading, Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
No.
Mr. Pike.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. That's first reading on item G. Second reading will be December 17th.
Great, thank you. As we are past the top of the hour, we'll go ahead and take a brief recess. Assembly, please be seated when you're ready to continue.
Yes.
One, and I still have 2, annually. We're all rolling.
Yeah, were you here at 6?
Yes, I was. You said, hey, we have 4 minutes left. So why?
There we go. See you Friday. Are there any snacks you want? We typically buy a bunch of snacks.
If you could just give us special we go ahead.
Those are money.
Those money.
I eat way too many of those, so you better help me now.
I know, I'm picking up that, so, what?
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Assembly. I think we've all met with our ANS representative and we all have a turkey to take home now. Those who can anyway, the turkeys are due back tomorrow. So if anybody in the crowd, if you have a ability to cook a turkey, I think there's like 4 left that are unaccounted for. So that would be greatly appreciated. Or anyone listening, if you have ability to cook a turkey tomorrow and drop it back off at A&B Hall after about 3, it would be greatly appreciated. So the assembly is seated. I will jump back into our agenda at item H, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-30 on first reading, amending Title 14, Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Places of the Sitka General Code by amending Chapter 14.10, Commercial Recreational Use of Municipal Lands and Facilities.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 24-30. I understand Kevin is here to introduce, and we may have Amy online here shortly as well. If not, Kevin, it's all on you. I hope Amy doesn't join online. If she's listening, she can stay sick
Yeah.
or get healthy, but
Hopefully, yes, get healthy, resting up, right? Good evening, Kevin Knox, Parks and Rec Coordinator. So yeah, the ordinance that you have before you there is something that's been under development or under consideration for some time by the Parks and Rec Committee and by operators and the community in general. One of the reasons why we're looking at a change here is because we have seen a pretty big growth in our visitor industry and also the number of permits that have been applied for in various areas around Sitka. And also in particular, also at Baranof Warm Springs. The current code right now, as it's written, doesn't give us a lot of guidance or ability to address some of the concerns that the public has brought forward and also the commercial operators as well. We're not able to really set capacity limits in the areas that have great concern. Also, there isn't real clear outlines sometimes for the commercial operators on providing them some guidance on how they might be able to use certain areas and what areas might be a little bit more sensitive. So that frustration has really come up in particular around the capacity limits and being able to address some of the concerns around overcrowding in some of our recreational assets. So the revision that we've proposed here will help clarify some of that, help establish some guidance for everybody. We've worked a bunch with the U.S. Forest Service and the state DNR, as well as having some conversations with National Park Service folks and also City of Borough of Juneau, because they're doing some similar work over there. We've had a number of different public engagements, as have been outlined in the memo, both on the draft ordinance and the creation of that, but also we've been doing some work with the proposed use plan draft that you'll be seeing later next month, or actually in your first meeting in December there. The Parks and Rec Committee has been very involved in this as well. So just to highlight a few things that we looked to improve in our permit process and addressing this code revision, looking for better definitions to help guide staff and the public, to create objective measures to establish those carrying capacities, and also to regularly collect and review that data that's necessary for developing the carrying capacities. We'll establish a much more regular and robust public engagement for reviewing permits and issuing permits, and also providing an appeals process for everybody, both from the public side and also the operator side. Also looking to place some really clear guidelines for staff to be able to evaluate, review, and sign or approve permits for operators to be given a much more clear timeline on how and when they'll be able to utilize their permits. So like I said, going forward here at your next meeting, we'll start looking at that use plan. It's not something that we purposely actually left out of the ordinance to give ourselves some flexibility and also be a lot more adaptive as things change, as the community needs change. We didn't want to put that into code. We wanted to have that as an annual use plan for review. So things like carrying capacities, additional proposed conditions of use in certain areas, and then also our fee structure. In the memo, you may have seen the little graphical there, kind of on that cycle. Just as a quick explanation of how this is proposed to work, this year we've started at number one. Number one would be our data collection. So over the summer months, we've been collecting data to kind of analyze how some of the areas have been used, as well as going out to the public with a survey to be able to collect some of that public input about how the community and operators would like to see certain areas used as well. We've reviewed and are in the process of reviewing a lot of that data and putting it together to bring forward as a use plan that will go to the Parks and Rec Committee. They will take in public input and then make a recommendation. That recommendation will come to the Assembly for your review and consideration. And then staff will be able to start the application process, bring in those applications, review them, and then approve them, and then issue a permit. So the couple of the highlights again, and the code change here, were the creation of a use plan would be or is outlined. We'll define the adoption authority of the use plan, so that puts that squarely at your table from a recommendation from the Parks and Rec Committee with plenty of public input. You'll be able to define, or the code defines the potential permit determinations, as well as opening up the avenue for creating additional determinations or conditions, expanding on terms allowed for permit duration and renewals. We purposely started the code for a short duration with the hope that once we have things established and we've kind of normalized the process and have a good use plan in place that makes sense for everybody. There's probably going to be some ups and downs with it a little bit, but we wanted to make sure that duration wasn't too long yet, but with the hopes that we would have a longer duration at some time in the future. Outlines the general operating requirements, and adding additional identification requirements within that. We'll expand on enforcement and penalties, because that was something we heard a lot from the public, that our enforcement was lacking, or the ability to enforce some of this was lacking. And then adding an appeals section, since the public review of the permit process was taken out of the Parks and Rec Committee. We wanted to make sure that there was an appropriate mechanism for either operators or the public to appeal any decisions that were made. Yeah, and that just kind of hits some of the highlights. Happy to answer any questions later if you have them. And Amy's also probably online listening and available for those as well.
Great, thank you, Kevin. I'm sure we'll have questions, so I wouldn't go far as well. Is there any public comment on ordinance 24-30?
Good evening. My name is Austin Cranford. I just wanted to speak. I was reading through the ordinance during the rest of the meeting, and I had a couple of things that were brought to my mind. For example, under 1410.020 lands regulated, it says this title applies to all municipal lands and facilities related to commercial recreational use, including Baranoff Warm Springs and other locations beyond the Sitka road system. This title also applies to all trails owned by and easements held by the city and borough of Sitka for parks and recreation purposes. This title also applies to the trails for which the city and borough holds joint jurisdiction with an agency of the state of Alaska or the United States government. My concern with that is upon looking through the GIS, which is publicly available online, we have the cross trail that not only goes through municipal land, it goes through USGS land, it goes through mental health land, Forest Service. There's a couple of areas it goes through private land. I also took the survey when it came out, and if I recall, Thimbleberry was on there. Thimbleberry and Heart Lake, a large portion of it is University of Alaska land, not municipal land. The only land the municipal city owns in that area is the parking lot right there on Sawmill Creek Road and a small easement for Blue Lake Road. The rest of that belongs to the University of Alaska. And my concern is when we're basically requesting money for use of a trail that's on somebody else's land, of have they been contacted and are they aware? I'll be reaching out to the university's land management department if this gets passed to notify them of this change. Outside of that, speaking to Kevin before he came up, it also came to my attention that this is going to general funds. Shouldn't this permitting process go to Parks and Rec funds and not to general funds? I would like a couple of things. One, that these funds go to Parks and Rec and that be amended, and that the trails that this specifically applies to be laid out. As mentioned, there are several trails that it's not quite sure who owns and who should be able to profit from the use of these trails. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment on 24-30? Back to the assembly for deliberation. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make a couple of comments as the liaison. I can attest to the fact that Kevin and Amy have gone above and beyond to work collaboratively with community partners and other stakeholders and with public outreach. I think they've done an amazing job. That's something that I noticed when I first got on as a liaison for Parks and Rec, is that the commission, currently they have no vehicle or no methodology whether something is a good idea or wanted by the community, no metrics whatsoever, and no ability to deny a permit really if they knew somehow that something wasn't going to work or if something needed to be edited or altered. I'm just super impressed by how thorough this is. And again, hats off to Kevin Knox and Amy Ainsley and anyone else who helped them with this. And something has been mentioned is that this is a work in progress. I did reach out to Kevin before this meeting a couple of days ago and asked about the 1-year permit fee, because that was a concern. I thought maybe businesses might want more of a stability, and he gave me a really good answer, and that's that that could change in the future, but they're just starting with 1 year just to kind of get some metrics, see how things how the process moves on, and we can always edit that in the future. But this is a very good, very, very good start. A member of the community did reach out to me today and mentioned that, they were concerned about enforcement and not that this isn't a good thing. This is a good thing, but they were concerned that we'll do it and we won't be able to enforce. And enforcement is a difficult part, but I think it is good that we're doing this. And I think enforcement should be something we look into and trying to do with that and other areas of the city. I did notice in here though that they'll be creating a badge system or something like that. So, when you're on the park, if you're you're walking on a trail, you see a person doing a whole tour, they don't have that on them, then they're not following code, and that could be reported. Unfortunately, there are people who don't follow the rules. I think a lot of people do with good intentions. A lot of operators do, and not just here in other areas, but unfortunately, there are some that don't. So I think this is a good first step to move forward, and I'm really I'm very much in favor of this. Thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, I think, as much as we can codify what is important, what the community needs to know and make it a simpler process, I think the better it is. I do have a question. It's not a question that you can necessarily answer right now, maybe. But I question whether or not you can do this without more people. And so, so I'm curious to hear whether or not there's an expectation at some point of adding more people to your department. Because, I mean, as soon as you talk about enforcement, and as soon as you talk about all these permits and all that process, I mean, that's going to tie up a lot of time, and time is a limited resource, especially in the summertime. So I guess that's my question. I'm not sure your fiscal note would accurately reflect the long-term or even the near-term costs as if we pass this. So.
Kevin, I do have a couple questions perhaps for yourself. So I'm going to start with permitting and transferability. So for assembly's sake, that's starting on lines 155. Would you issue a permit to a business entity that does not yet exist but anticipates existing?
Mr. Mayor, this is Amy Ainsley.
Thank you for being here, Amy.
Yeah, no problem. If it's all right with you guys, I'd like to jump in with that. Generally, part of our application permit or our application process, even right now, is that a business has to submit or with their application, or at least shortly thereafter, submit things like their proof of insurance. And generally speaking, unless you're an existing business, you can't get an insurance policy. And so we've created some flexibility for that in the past, where folks have been able to, maybe make their application and then turn in their proof of insurance shortly thereafter, after getting one. And so I think there's nothing in the code that precludes us, in this code revision that precludes us from having that kind of flexibility. But at some point before the permit actually gets issued, we're going to have to be sure that it is a actual business entity that has, certain things like insurance coverage and that sort of thing.
Okay, and I think as I explain my concern with it, you'll then say that it's the flexibility in the code, but I don't necessarily read that right away. And so for the assembly's purpose, my question here, so a permit is not transferable. So if you have a business built around utilizing our, we'll say, trails, and that the business has had permits for years, and someone wants to purchase this business, they're saying that the permit is non-transferable. So you've eliminated value from that business if you're going to try and sell it, because you're not guaranteed to then get the permit next. And if you say that there's not an ability to get a permit for an entity that doesn't exist, maybe that person cannot then apply for a permit while they're waiting for the transfer of this business. So I have a concern there. I want to make sure that that is hashed out somehow so that there is a mechanism to transfer a business along with allowing that new business owner to apply for this permit, which would guarantee them the ability for commerce before they actually own that business.
Yeah, and this is a conversation that we actually had with Rachel a bit about how to best word this. And we had a couple of different ways. One of the main concerns that we were trying to address is making sure that there's the accountability with any permit that's issued with whoever owns the business. So if there was a transfer of a business, the permit is under the name of the business, but also the individual. So making sure that we have that accountability still built in. But I mean, I would defer to Rachel on any other further interpretation on how that ends up playing out.
So Rachel, as code is written now, you're comfortable that a business can be bought and sold within the confines of this, and permits can be transferred from a existing, not permits transferred, but a new owner can apply for and potentially receive permits if they qualify without yet owning that business.
That's correct. The kind of conversation that we were having back and forth via email mostly, the original language, it was unclear both how it would apply in a sales situation or if the business was trying to subcontract out that line of work. And we were trying to get language that would encompass kind of all those situations and make sure that the person who's actually operating the tour has been vetted through that permitting system.
Okay,
also.
great. As long as there's provisions for that, because I see that as, when I initially read it, it seemed very preventative as such, and I wanted to make sure that anyone who's built a business around that, they have that ability to sell that business if necessary while maintaining some value. Kevin, my next question will be about the permit holder identification. So starting on lines 211 for the assembly's purposes, what do you intend with that? Because that seems, I don't anticipate that you want a 12x8 sign worn around everybody's neck. But it seems awkward. I don't necessarily like it. Like, I think someone should be able to have it in their pocket, a small identification card, but to demand that they wear a placard on their sleeve or however that goes, I don't know that I can get behind it. So can you talk about your thought process with those lines, please?
The intent mostly was behind the fact that we don't have enforcement out there. So providing other operators and the public with a readily identifiable means of, showing that, whoever is operating out there is a permitted entity. Kind of like, having a ADF&G sticker on a boat, on a charter boat or something else like that. It's a common practice within a lot of different other kinds of operations, or one of the examples that I found, as I was trying to figure out how to incorporate this, was like pedicabs or taxis or other things like that, having identifiable means of establishing, this person is a permitted operator.
Yeah, I guess that's a little different to me being plastered on a vehicle. I have a driver's license and I'm not required to wear that on my sleeve, but I am required to present it as necessary. I also will be looking for feedback in this in a year, because I fear the idea of us asking Sitkins to tattletale on Sitkins. And I hate the downward spiral that can cause.
Yeah.
Do people opposed to the activity now post up at Trailhead and call us every single time a group goes on without a display? So I understand where you're going with it, but I think there's some ramifications that we need to pay attention to as this develops. One final question. Do we have a commercial recreational use plan yet?
There is a draft being created now, and the part of that first draft was shared with the public last week. And we did receive feedback, and we're incorporating some of those changes. And we will have the first full draft presented to the Parks and Rec Committee on December 10th, and then hopefully a first draft to you on December 17th.
Okay, so before we finalize approving this, we will be able to see that plan.
You'll see, hopefully you'll see the first draft of the use plan on the same day that you'll see the second reading of
Okay,
this.
because that eases some of my concerns, because I cannot vote for this at this point without a commercial use plan, because it says that the commercial use plan shall be adopted by the City and Borough Assembly. So you're obligating me to adopt something I haven't seen yet. And I hesitate that mere on a procedural level more than anything. So if I can see that plan before a final reading, I'm okay going forward at this point. But I don't want to obligate myself to approve something that we, like the Parks and Rec, may not approve, that we may not approve as a whole going forward. So
I think
my couple concerns on those.
Sure, and I think it's important to understand too, with that use plan, it will have for each of the different recreational assets that we've identified in this first draft, it'll have findings for those assets, It will have directives, including carrying capacities, like how many, like group size maximums and how many groups per week or how many permits per week should be issued, as well as additional conditional aspects of that you may want to consider for each individual asset. If there's, different nuances beyond what is already written in code as conditional aspects. But all of those things can be changed within that use plan based on the feedback that you get from the public and operators, but also for your desires as well. So that use plan is something that is moldable by the assembly as well. It's not gonna, I don't envision it, and I don't think Amy does either, something that we come forward and we say, this is set in stone, use it or not. It'll be something that you can manipulate to some degree.
Yeah, and just worst case scenario, the assembly hates the plan entirely. We decide to throw it out. This doesn't necessarily give me the ability to do that. It says I will have one. So.
And well, I would have envisioned then we would have to come back with something that does work for you then.
Okay. Thank you for that. Didn't mean to beat you up too hard on that one, but
Sorry.
I think this is important as we go forward because it is putting some community-driven thoughts and guidelines and restrictions on our recreational facilities, which I think was important to our community. So we're getting out ahead of that now, which I appreciate your time and effort on doing before they become to the point where we can't back down. So I think that this is a very strong step as we go forward in maintaining a balance between everything. So I thank you for your time.
Sure.
Other questions for Kevin? JJ?
Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
Question about like the current process.
Mhm.
So is it, we give commercial recreational use permits now,
Yes,
and are those permitted by the Parks and Rec Committee?
correct. So applicant fills out the application, provides the additional documents that are necessary. That gets forwarded to the Parks and Rec Committee. And then when they have a quorum, they review and provide comment. The provisions for them approving or denying a permit are rather narrow. I'm looking for it here. It's in 1410-030. The 1, 2, and 3 are the only things that they're allowed to consider at this point. And where we've added 4, adds in that consideration of the use plan. We have had the committee make recommendations as to group size or frequency of use for permits. And the operators have commented back that actually isn't a way for them to do that. So permits are forwarded on to the administrator at that point for final approval, because the committee only makes the recommendation, and then the administrator signs the approvals.
Thank you. So with this update that's on the table tonight, what will the role of the Parks and Rec Committee be?
They will be very involved in developing the use plan, which includes the capacity limits or allocations, as well as other provisions of conditions of use. They also will have some role in the taking in public comment or other things like that.
Great, thank you. I think that's in alignment with not all of our commissions committees, but some of the ones that I think the Parks and Rec most closely resemble.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Other questions for Kevin? Thank you, Amy and Kevin. Appreciate you.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen and JJ. Those are really good questions. Especially the one about transferability that hadn't hit my register. But I'm glad that you asked it and it was answered. The only thing I was gonna say, about the lanyards, a thought that maybe might ease your mind is that, hospital staff, they either have one on their lanyard or they have something pinned to their, thing. So it's not unheard of for, organizations to require that. And then your thought about the, kind of snitching squads kind of thing, that is a concern of mine too. I don't know if that's the right term, but, I don't want, I don't want that either. And so hopefully that won't happen, hopefully we have, sorry.
No, I just think that was a cartoon at one point, the snitching squad.
I wasn't intending on that thing, but my point is, it is a valid concern. I don't want seconds, telling on each other all the time. Hopefully it's a thing where it motivates people to just show it anyways, and knowing that this exists cause operators who might otherwise not do something will comply, hopefully. We'll see. Thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, I'm a little uneasy at passing this one. I kind of wonder if you got it backwards in a way. So whether we needed the plan first and then follow up with this particular thing, with this particular ordinance. So, I mean, I guess I'm willing to pass it at this point in time, but, absent a plan that works, I probably won't sign on to it the second time through, just because, I think there are pieces to this, that this is a reference to a piece that we don't currently have. And I think that's why I'm a little uneasy. And again, like I said about, the enforcement pieces, either we go with Kevin's snitching squads or we end up hiring someone to do this. And I think to keep an eye on these things and to handle, what happens in terms of enforcement. I mean, people were it sounds like very clear from what I saw that enforcement was a big issue with people. And so what are we doing about that? And so, what's that going to cost us?
Sure.
Yeah, my only thought is then it's gonna depend on the plan, and when I read it, when it says the assembly shall pass this, it means that we get the say on it. It doesn't mean that we have to pass it. That's impossible to say anyway. So it's all gonna depend on the plan, and that's our call. So I'm comfortable passing this now with a certain amount of flexibility, because the one thing I will guarantee you is we will be changing this. No matter what we do, we will be changing it. As the first casualty of a plan is when you meet the enemy kind of thing. And so it's gonna be changed. So get something down, work out the kinks, and change it as needed.
Anything else on first reading of our commercial recreation use plan or ordinance of such? Sarah?
Right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-30 on first reading, Mr. Yestad?
Yes.
Mr. Celine?
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß?
Yes.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Ms. Carlson?
Yes.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
And Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on first reading.
It is the top of the hour. I know we had a break not too long ago. Do we want to power through the last couple or? But I have a report and it's going to be like 30 minutes. Item I, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-31 on first reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025 data center uninterruptible power supply.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 24-31. John, I understand Grant has an introduction on this one.
That is correct.
Hey, Grant Turner, IT Director. Basically, if you guys remember last year, we approved the addition of the new hosts for our virtual host system in our data center. These new hosts do require more power to run, and the current, we have 3 racks in our data center right now, one for the hosting of our servers and the storage for those, one for the management of our networks, and one for our radio systems. Right now, we're having to split the hosting power supplies between 2 of the racks, which is technically functions, but is not optimal. It doesn't allow for redundancy and for proper backups for the power supplies. And even that, it's kind of a short window that it gives us for the downtime for when there's a power outage and to when the generator kicks in. So in order to have that full amount of time available so that the hosts don't go down, this new uninterruptible power supply would allow for that for the new hosts. And this new one would allow these hosts to operate in such the way that we would like them to for at least the next 10 years.
Thank you. If we have questions, we'll call you up.
All right, thank you.
Is there any public comment on ordinance 24-31? Assembly deliberation? Sorry, Grant, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot on this one. So our budget cycle just happened. Why didn't this make it into the budget cycle, just a couple months ago here?
The equipment didn't come in and get installed in time for us to see the problem. So we basically encountered the problem after the budget part was already done.
Okay, so it wasn't a foreseeable issue then?
No, according to all the specs for all the equipment, it should have worked fine. It was towards the higher end of the allowable specs, but the hosts they didn't have a full documentation on their actual power draw. And so the way we have it set up, it needed more power than what our power supply could allow. And it kept throwing alerts. It would function, but kept throwing alerts all the time. So we had to do something to fix that.
Okay. Man, you got to buy some stuff from people who give you right specs, I guess, huh? Thank you.
That would be nice.
Anything else from the assembly on this one? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-31 on first reading, Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
and Mayor Eisenbeis.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0 on item I.
So bringing us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
Good evening. The name is Austin Cranford. I just wanted to bring up, I was going to come up here for something else, but I want to bring this up ahead of that. A comment was made by assembly members on ordinance 24-29 regarding the marine vessel haul out and shipyard project, specifically about trusting and verifying and if certain things are needed. I would like to point out that a vote was held several years ago by the city asking the community if this wanted to happen. It was an overwhelming yes that the community wanted the haul out. We knew it was going to cost money, and we knew that there was more than likely going to be extra money that needed to be dedicated towards this project. I'm a little concerned about the heating elements. The city has already had violations of the Clean Water Act, specifically requiring the pump station over here on the other island, whose name I forget right now. And if you don't add the heating element, and we do have runoff into the ocean, well, there's another Clean Water Act violation, which means the feds come in and then we start paying fines and all this other stuff. So you end up paying more money in the long run instead of just putting the heating element in to start with. With that being said, another comment was made about it being a small part of the population. The fishing industry is the second largest industry in Sitka. I believe 1 is tourism, 2 is fishing, and 3 is healthcare. I may have that backwards, but fishing's pretty high up there. So I think we should continue to fund a haul out and make sure it functions properly when it's such a large part of our economy. And that's all I have to say on that. Regarding what I came up here originally for is it's come to my attention that apparently 3 of our officers are on their way out of the police department. My understanding is 2 of them will be gone before December, and 1 of them is gone either February or March, according to the rumors. how many officers do we have on the police department at this point? I know several of them are contractors, which I'm sure means they're getting paid a lot more than regular officers. And I would like a statement from the city of how many officers we actually have on duty, because it becomes a health and safety hazard, especially when we have thousands and thousands of people here for tourism season next year. Thank you.
Anyone else for persons to be heard? Any item on or off tonight's agenda? I'll bring us to reports. It's actually driving over here and it seems like it's been a long 2 weeks. I was trying to rack my brain with what happened, a week ago that I needed to report on. But as we know, we had a government to government meeting for dinner here recently. I think that went really well. There were some issues brought up that I think are already getting addressed. I think one of them, the bear issue, was addressed in the paper here recently. So I think there's a lot of work yet to do on that. And I think it'll remain a priority for both governments to work on coming up. I also had the pleasure of going to Sitka Tribe of Alaska's annual meeting. I will say that my heart dropped for a second because I was there as a invitee, and all of a sudden, Yeti Kuka was up on stage and said, "Where's the mayor? Where's the mayor?" I think the mayor's here, and I thought I had to give an impromptu speech, which I was completely not ready for. I was there to eat some king salmon and rice. So luckily, I was not called up on stage, but they simply wanted to honor the fact that the mayor had come to the meeting and was present. So it was a great king salmon meal. For those that didn't make it, there was a lot of king salmon left over, so the people got to take quite a bit home. And I think that is it for me. John? Well, actually, I guess we will both be leaving to Anchorage here 2 weeks from now for the AML conference. One of the reasons that we had to shift our dates on our assembly meetings.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, a follow-up from the government to government meeting. We did follow up on a few things. The Catley Bay Road was a concern with safety on that road in the wintertime. We did confirm that has been closed as expected and kind of proposed by the state. On the Bears issue, I have a meeting set to discuss between myself, police department, Fish and Game, and the local troopers too, to kind of dig into some of the concerns at the moment and see what can be done. And as you said, December 8th, we'll be leaving for the Alaska Municipal League annual meeting, and I'll be there for the Alaska Municipal Management Association meeting at the same time. Thanks.
Rachel?
Thank you, Mayor. We are at trial right now in 1SI 2140 CI. That's Wampler versus McGrath in the City and Borough of Sitka. Our attorney for that is Mr. Lazar. We started yesterday morning at 8:30 and paneled a jury late this afternoon. Opening statements will be tomorrow morning with evidence going through next Friday. And then the jury will deliberate for as long as they deliberate. Should have an update on the outcome there at the next meeting. I'll be away for the municipal conference also. So between trial this week, trial next week, and the municipal conference, the internal workload has slowed down a bit, but I let department heads know that about a month ago. So I've been able to get ahead of whatever needed to be done by the end of the year. That's it for me.
Liaison representatives, Tor?
Yeah, so we had a very infrequent permanent fund meeting. Got a report, which got copies here. I think we can, if anybody wants it. But the upshot of it was that last year we did really well, 23%. But overall, we're trending well above the 4% we pulled. I think we're, since its inception, it's just over 6%. And our year to date is just over 9%, depending on which fund we're looking at. And it is, if you ever get a chance to sit in on one of those meetings, it is really interesting the way that it's all designed to reduce risk and produce a certain, the target interest rate. And they actually get nervous when it's really high, like last year, because that means that but the market alone did quite well. So we are actually gaining a little bit on what we're pulling from it. And I will say that they were saying that other communities really appreciate what we've done here since its inception. And Bert Stedman was actually there in person, was talking about that, and that what we've done is introduced a level of stability to our finances with that. It really is nice to have. It helps our bonding. And depending on how you look at it, at the very least produces essentially a little over $1 million of property tax value to us every year. And on sometimes, depending on how it could even approach a level of a point of sales tax. So part of it's very quiet in the background, but it makes a huge difference to our finances. And as we continue and we build it up and maybe add some more as we sell some land or something, it's a huge stabilizer for the city, and we should be proud of it.
JJ?
Health Needs and Human Services Commission met last week, and their 3 working groups presented their draft reports that they'll be bringing to the Assembly probably in January. The groups are transportation, elder care, and child care. And it was interesting and I'm very appreciative of our members and how they read the reports, how they worked off of each other. They gave great ideas and feedback amongst the group and some community members. It was probably our most well-attended meeting in years. It was great to see the community's interest in supporting those 3 causes. And we'll be getting their reports or their recommendations here in a couple months.
Any other liaison reports? Sarah?
I'll go through our vacancy list on boards, commissions, and committees. We have the Animal Hearing Board, Building Department Appeals Board, Health Needs and Human Services Commission, Historic Preservation, Investment Committee, Local Emergency Planning Committee, Police and Fire, Port and Harbors, and the Sustainability Commission. So if folks are interested, they want to learn more, contact our office. The December Assembly meetings have been rescheduled, as the mayor mentioned. Staff and Assembly members are going to be in attendance at the Alaska Municipal League Conference and then the associate conferences on either side of that. And then, of course, the Christmas holiday, or Christmas Eve holiday. So the new meeting dates for the December meetings are the 17th and the 30th. And then the clerk's office staff will be attending the clerk's conference. It's the 8th through the 11th.
Great, thank you. Any other reports this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you, everyone, for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris, for phoning in.
Yep. Have a good evening.